Now here's an interesting phenomenon. What happens when we have inconsistent attitudes? We humans, as a species, are attracted to balance, so we're motivated toward consistency. Inconsistent attitudes tend to prompt discomfort and change. Let's begin by looking at balance theory, an interpersonal theory, meaning our attitudes involving other people. Fritz Heider's balance theory outlines how inconsistent attitudes, or what he calls unbalanced relationships, prompt change. So first, let's look at a couple of balanced relationships. In our first case, let's say that you have a friend named Joe. You like Joe, he's a great guy. Thus the plus sign here between the two of you. You endorse liberal politics, and so does Joe. Now, this is a balanced relationship, right? We like when our friends agree with us. That just seems the way that life should be, right? So all is cool. This should not prompt any change in attitude. Here's another example of a balanced relationship. Let's say you know a woman named Kate, and you clearly dislike her, thus the negative sign between the two of you here. You endorse liberal politics and Kate does not. We tend to like when people we dislike have different attitudes too. It helps us to justify that we don't like them. So this too is a balanced relationship and should not prompt any change. Get it? So now here's your challenge. I want you to try pausing the video now and drawing an unbalanced relationship triangle with you at the top, someone you like in the left corner, and an attitude you disagree on in the right corner. Drawing your plus and minus signs, and then resume the video and we will compare notes. Okay. Basically, unbalanced relationships are ones in which we disagree with someone we like or agree with someone we dislike. In this case, you feel negatively about hunting, but Tom is an avid hunter. This lack of balance prompts some change. Something's got to give here. Will you like Tom less or think more highly about hunting? And that depends how important Tom and hunting are to you comparatively, right? If Tom is not very important to you at all, but you are a strong protester of hunting, you will likely like Tom less. If, on the other hand, Tom is the best thing to come into your life since peanut butter, and you want to spend the rest of your life with him, you're likely to shift your position about hunting. On balance, prompts change. Here's one more example of an unbalanced relationship. You are crazy about psychology. It has consumed your life. It's all you talk about. And you're so excited about all that you're learning, you're joining psych clubs, wearing psychology paraphernalia. Maria is your close friend when you switch your major to psych. She looks down on psychology, though. Thinks it's a bunch of psychobabble. Thinks you should study something real. Ouch! Unbalance prompts change. Most likely, you will begin to alter your attitude about one or the other, Maria or psychology. Something's got to go. Okay, so be sure that you can identify a balanced and unbalanced relationship in Heider's theory and know the consequences. Now, just a final note about unbalanced relationships, just for your information, not for testing. Notice that I didn't give you an unbalanced example about someone that you dislike. When we dislike people, we sometimes don't care what they think. So unbalanced relationships with those we dislike are not as predictive regarding attitude change. Sometimes we ourselves carry attitudes that are inconsistent with our own behaviors. So this cognitive dissonance is an example of an intrapersonal inconsistency, right? Intrapersonal. Perhaps you believe in recycling, but you don't personally recycle. Or say you're on a diet, but you just dove headfirst into a tub of Oreo cookie ice cream. Or Let's say you waited in a long line for hours to get into a concert, which then proved to be a disappointment. These situations cause cognitive dissonance, a discomfort that we are motivated to reduce. In the case of the diet, you might reduce dissonance through justifying your behavior by changing your attitude about ice cream, by thinking, ice cream is nutritious. It's a dairy product, right? Imagine that you were a participant in Leon Festinger and Merrill Carlsmith's classic boring peg study, where participants had to do an incredibly boring task of sticking pegs in holes for a full hour, the longest hour of your life. Finally, you finish, and the experimenter let you in on a secret. You were in the control group. But to test effects of motivation, participants in the experimental group are being told first that the study is super fun and exciting. You don't know it, but you are now being set up for the critical part of the study. As you begin walking to the last room for a last debriefing question, the experimenter asks you to tell the next participant waiting out the door that the study is fun and exciting. He even offers to pay you $1 to do so. You hem and haw, but finally you're persuaded to tell this little white lie. In the last room, you are asked to rate how interesting you found the peg study to be. How do you think this lie affected participants' ratings? Interestingly, if the payment was $1, as in your hypothetical case, they tended to justify lying by rating the task significantly more interesting compared to the real control group who were not asked to lie. They reduced their cognitive dissonance by adjusting their attitude regarding the task to more closely match their lie. Now, interestingly, when participants were paid $20 for telling the lie, they did not need to change their attitude about the task. They didn't need to believe the lie more because the money already justified telling a little white lie. The ratings were the same as the control group. Apparently, $20 justified telling a little white lie, especially considering that $20 then was worth what would be about $80 today. Remember our quiz question at the beginning of this lecture? How much money would you have to be paid to believe a lie? Here's a situation where people tend to believe a lie for $1. In another classic cognitive dissonance study, Elliot Aronson and Judson Mill invited female participants to participate in a discussion group. Because the discussion was going to be about sex, some were told that they had to pass an embarrassment test first. The test involved reading sexual material containing obscene words in front of a male experimenter. Other participants were not required to undergo this test. Moments later, all participants were given headphones and permitted ahead of time to eavesdrop on the group discussion that they would allegedly be joining. What they heard was a tape recording of a discussion about secondary sex behaviors in low animals that was unbelievably boring. Participants were then asked to rate how interesting they perceived the discussion to be. As you might have guessed, those who had to balance the dissonant idea that they endured a really uncomfortable, embarrassing test just to get into the group rated it as significantly more interesting.